Let's talk about drug discovery and drug development. In general definition, drug is is a substance, frequently a chemical compound, sometimes other substance, that as a whole or as a component of a medication can be used for the purpose of diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of a disease. FDA is the country's regulation authority for the pharmaceutical industry. In the eye of FDA, drug also needs to possess certain dosage form, such as tablet, capsule, solutions, and other forms that is delivered to patients. You got some way to get into the patient system, get absorbed, and take effect. The terms drug discovery and drug development look similar, and they're often used together in literature. However, if you think carefully, the drug discovery and the drug development are being used in very marked different terms. Let's just pull a definition from online free dictionary. Drug discovery is the process of developing a therapeutical active substance for defined target molecule or pathway. While drug development is blanket terms used to define the entire process of bringing a new drug or device to the market, it includes drug discovery / product development, preclinical research, and clinical trials on humans. We defined the drug development as covered the entire process from finding promising drug candidate for certain disease indications to lab test, animal test, human test, filing for regulatory approval, and, if successful, bring to market worldwide. On the other hand, drug discovery is commonly used for the early part of the process. The early stage, we don't know, we want to discover, we want to find out new chemical entities or some other substance that may have effect in curing or maintaining or diagnose certain disease indications. The drug discovery, we emphasize the discovery. We don't know, we want to know. That's the early stage. That's all the research and testing. Before the clinical stage of the drug development starts, we want to make sure the substance is there. It shows promise. Everybody knows the brand name drug, the patented, the new drugs are very expensive versus the generic drugs and over-counter drugs. They're sort of cheap. Because if you only talk about the substance, the small chemical. It doesn't take much to manufacture it. What's difficult is to obtain the knowledge and all the testing to make sure this drug is effective on the disease indication and also safe for the human beings. Everything has a cost and benefit. We want benefit outweigh the cost. In fact, the drug development is a very long, expensive, and risky process. In general, it takes from 10 to 15 years, sometimes even more, to bring an initially promising drug candidate through final regulatory approval. And not only it takes long time to get a drug from a promising chemical to the regulatory approved entity that you can market and then be used by patients. And the overwhelming majority of drug candidates fail. So in general, rule of thumb, every 5,000 promising drug candidates discovered during the early stage, only about 5 of them survive to the clinical stage. Among them, 1 may eventually get approval for sale. As you'll see, overwhelming majority of the effort for discover new drug and bring it to clinical trials and the regulatory approval, most of them, the efforts are failed effort. You fail 99% time or even more and get 1 or 2 success. Because of all these failed attempts, it's extremely expensive to bring a new drug successfully to get regulatory approval, get all the tests done, and then bring to the worldwide market. It's not rare for the cost to exceed $1 billion. Now we know the drug development is very long, very risky, and very expensive. So who would survive that long to invest on the pharmaceutical industry? Well, there's always a bunch of people. They can tolerate very high risk, and then they can suffer for long terms without seeing their money coming back with profit. These people have long-term vision. But on the other hand, to pay for their long suffering and high risk, the reward should be very, very big. They don't throw money, suffer the process, take the high risk for nothing. Their reward could be tremendous. If you think it's big money to spend like $1 billion to develop a new drug, but if the drug become a blockbuster, then it can bring in, year out, tens of billions of dollars of sale to the company under the protection of the patent. So this is a big money business. The pharmaceutical company tend to be big, so they have enough wherewithal to weather up and down. They can survive a failed drug development process. They can reap the benefit. They can survive to the day that they can reap the benefit of a successful drug development. However, when a big company gets huge, they seem to lose their niche, their capability to discover any good early stage new drug candidates. So the trend is not to have big companies pouring billions of dollars for their own research and development to discover new drug candidates. They smartly leave the drug development, the drug discovery, to be handled by small pharmaceutical companies or startups. Because those companies, they're nimble, they're small, they're highly motivated to discover the new drug candidate. While big company can use their the huge marketing muscle and their huge investment and cash reserves to bring those compounds through the clinical trial, regulatory process, and to the market. So the current trend is the small company do the initial work. And once the compounds are good enough to enter human trials, the big company will take over. They either buy the company, the small company, or they acquire the license, or the form called alliance. They make an investment in the small companies to get a right to co-develop. And in addition, with the advent of computer technology and internet, the biomedical informatics are playing more and more important roles in making the drug development process more efficient and less wasteful, and also reduce medical errors during the clinical trial and research to protect the volunteers, the patients, and then the public at large.